Mama said if Uncle Luca came first, I had to hide it, the little girl whispered, and the cracked old phone in her arms suddenly became the most dangerous object in the Moretti house. Nora Bell was 4 years old, small enough to sit beneath the glass coffee table in the small sitting room beside the kitchen without touching the edge. But she held the phone against her chest like one loose finger could make the whole house stop breathing. A pale yellow cloth was wrapped around it, old and soft, with one corner twisted beneath her thumb. One shoe had slipped halfway off her heel. Her knees were pulled close. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry, and somehow that made every adult in the room more uncomfortable than tears would have. Luca Moretti crouched in front of her with a gentle face, the kind of face powerful men used when pressure needed to look like kindness. "Nora," he said softly, "give that to me. It is just an old piece of trash. I will put it where it belongs." Behind him, Vivian Cole, the new house manager, stood with her hands folded at her waist, watching the child the way she watched silverware counts and linen closets. Polite. Exakt. Empty. Beside the coffee table, Attorney Gerald Pike placed a cream-colored envelope on the glass. It slid forward just enough for the printed words to show, "Estate Device Recovery Authorization." Nora could not read those words. She did not know what estate meant. She did not know what authorization meant. She only knew the paperman had come with Uncle Luca, and her mother had said if Uncle Luca came first, she was not supposed to let go. Vivian leaned in with a smile that had no warmth inside it. "Sweetheart, that does not belong to you." Nora pressed the phone tighter under the yellow cloth. "It does not belong to him." Luca's smile stayed, but something near his jaw tightened. Gerald opened the envelope with dry, careful fingers. Children repeat what they are told. The longer this continues, the more frightened she will become. Then Dante Moretti walked in from the back hallway. No one had heard his steps. He wore a black tailored suit, his silver family ring, his father's old watch, and black leather. Gloves folded in one hand. The room changed the way rooms always changed when Dante entered them. Vivian straightened. Gerald stopped touching the papers. Luca rose slowly, smoothing the front of his jacket before turning around. Dante looked first at his brother, then at Vivian, then at the envelope on the table, and finally at the little black girl under the glass. "Why is a lawyer standing over a 4-year-old in the sitting room beside my kitchen?" he asked. Gerald cleared his throat. "Mr. Moretti, we are simply recovering a device believed to be connected to estate property." Dante did not look away from Nora. "Believed by whom?" Luca stepped in smoothly. "By me." Maya's child found an old phone. Staff sometimes misunderstand what belongs to the family. I wanted this handled quietly before it became embarrassing. Nora pulled the yellow cloth higher over the phone. For half a second, a sliver of cracked black screen showed through, along with a few faded blue stitches near the cloth's corner. But her thumb covered them before anyone could read the shape. Luca's eyes moved to that corner too quickly. Dante saw it. Nora saw it too because children noticed small pauses adults tried to bury. Vivian said, "The girl has been frightened by adult stories. It would be best to take it now before she becomes more upset." Nora shook her head once. "Mama said not him." Luca gave Dante the wounded look of a loyal brother forced into an ugly duty. "You see? Maya has put this in her head. You are grieving, Dante. People may not mean harm, but they can still take advantage of pain." Dante stepped closer, not fast enough to scare Nora and not slow enough to look unsure. He placed one black glove on the glass beside Gerald's envelope. The sound was small, but every person heard it. "No one touches the child," he said. His eyes moved to the phone wrapped in Nora's arms. "And no one touches that phone." Gerald's fingers tightened around the envelope. Vivian's expression held still. Luca looked from Dante to the cloth and back again, his voice still soft. "Brother, this is unnecessary." Nora swallowed. "I do not know his paper," she whispered. "I only know Mama said do not. Let go." Dante finally turned to Luca. The room seemed to shrink around the silence before he spoke. "If it is trash, Luca," he said, "why did you bring a lawyer?" Vivian Cole moved first, because her calm was never empty. It had purpose. She turned toward the kitchen doorway with the same controlled posture she used when correcting staff schedules and called, "Maya, come here, please." The word please did not make the command gentle. It only made it harder to refuse. For a few seconds, the hallway behind her stayed quiet. Then Maya Bell appeared at the threshold, wearing a black work dress and a white apron still damp from the sink. One sleeve was rolled higher than the other. A thin line of soap shone across the back of her hand. She stopped when she saw Nora beneath the coffee table, and her face did not show surprise. It showed the tired fear of a woman who had known this moment was coming and had hoped only that her child would not have to sit in the middle of it. "Mama," Nora whispered, pulling the covered phone closer. Maya did not rush across the rug. She knew the rules of the Moretti house too well. She knew which carpet staff were not supposed to cross with wet shoes, which chairs belonged to family, and which doors a maid could open only after knocking. So she stood at the edge of the room, half inside and half outside, while people with polished shoes discussed her daughter as if the child were a problem to file away. Gerald Pike opened the cream envelope and removed the documents with careful fingers. "Mr. Moretti, this authorization exists to prevent mishandling of estate property. It specifically concerns an old mobile device believed to be in staff possession." Dante's eyes shifted from Gerald to Luca. "Staff possession," he repeated. "You had those words printed before I knew a phone existed." Gerald did not blink, but his thumb pressed too hard against the paper. "We were acting on preliminary information." Luca gave a small, sorrowful sigh. "Dante, Mother's effects have been moved, boxed, touched by half the house. I asked Gerald to handle this quietly to protect everyone involved." Maya looked at the document, then at Luca. "Protect who?" The question was quiet enough that Vivian almost stepped over it. "Maya," Vivian said, "this is not the time to become defensive." Nora pulled the yellow cloth higher, hiding the cracked screen completely. "Mama said not him," she whispered. Gerald turned toward Dante. "That is exactly the concern. A child has clearly been instructed to withhold family property from a family member." Maya looked down at Nora, and the fear in her face hardened into something smaller and stronger. "I instructed my child not to hand over what Mrs. Moretti told me to protect." Luca's expression softened in public pain. "Maya, think carefully. You are standing in my brother's house accusing his family while his mother has barely been laid to rest." Maya did not raise her voice. "No, sir. I am standing in the doorway because this house taught me where to stop." Dante looked at her then. Not kindly, not yet, but fully. Maya swallowed and continued. "And my daughter is under that table because adults came for something they knew they should not touch." Vivian stepped forward. "Mr. Moretti, grief makes people vulnerable. Maya has been under pressure. Her daughter hears pieces of adult conversations and turns them into fear." Gerald laid the top page on the glass and tapped a line near the center. "The purpose of recovery is to protect the reputation of the deceased and prevent improper handling." Dante became very still. "The deceased," he said. "My mother." Gerald nodded once. "Yes." Dante looked at Luca. "Strange. No one told me the phone had anything to do with my mother until your lawyer printed her reputation into a recovery order." Luca answered smoothly. "Because I am trying to keep her name out of a staff matter." Nora leaned forward just enough for the yellow cloth to brush the rug. "It says Dante at night," she whispered. Maya took one quick breath, but the sentence was already loose in the room. Dante crouched slightly, his voice low. "What says Dante?" Nora looked at the covered phone. "The old phone. Sometimes it wakes up in the towel drawer. Mama sees the letters and wraps it again because she gets scared." The words were childish, uneven, and impossible to polish. That was why they struck harder than an accusation. Vivian looked at Luca before she remembered not to. Gerald looked down at his paper. Luca looked at no one for one full second. Dante noticed all of it. He folded the recovery authorization once and placed it back beside his black glove. "Maya stays," he said. "Nora keeps the phone." Gerald opened his mouth, but Dante's voice cut through the room without rising. And now everyone here will explain why my mother's reputation was written into a document before anyone told me her phone was missing. Dante did not reach for the phone, and that made the room more nervous than if he had taken it by force. In the Moretti house, power usually moved first and explained itself later, but Dante stayed still, his black glove resting beside Gerald Pike's folded paper, his eyes on the covered object in Nora's arms. Nora had crawled only halfway out from beneath the coffee table. Her cheek was close to the glass edge, her knees tucked under her, the pale yellow cloth gathered tight beneath her small fingers. Dante lowered himself until his eyes were nearly level with hers. He did not smile. He did not make his voice sweet in that false way adults used when they wanted children to obey. "Nora," he said, "I will not take it from you. I only want to see the corner of the cloth." Nora looked at Maya first. Maya stood at the edge of the rug with both hands pressed against her damp apron, fighting the instinct to cross a line the house had trained into her body. "Only if you want to, baby," she said. Nora loosened one finger, then another. The cloth opened just enough for the hidden corner to show. 2 small letters were stitched there in faded blue thread. Dante stared at them, and for the first time since he had entered, his face changed in a way no one could name without admitting they had seen his pain. The bottom of the A leaned slightly left. The M was uneven at the middle point. He knew that stitch. Alessandra Moretti had started marking her private things that way after her hands weakened in the hospital, stubbornly refusing to let anyone else do it for her. A shawl, a reading cloth, a small square of linen she folded beside her pillow, not kitchen towels, not staff laundry, not anything that would end up in Maya Bell's drawer unless someone had placed it there on purpose. Vivian noticed the shift and moved quickly to cover it. Mr. Moretti, after the funeral, many personal items were boxed and moved. Staff handled linens, keepsakes, clothing. It is possible Maya took the cloth without understanding what it meant. Maya did not look offended. That was worse. She looked tired, as if being suspected had become another uniform she was expected to wear. Nora touched the stitched letters with one finger. "The white-haired lady wrapped it," she whispered. "She said the phone was cold." Luca gave a quiet laugh, but the sound came half a second too late. "Dante, listen to what this is becoming. A frightened maid, a grieving house, and a 4-year-old's memory. That is not evidence." Dante's eyes moved to Luca's hand. Luca was rubbing the edge of his Moretti ring with his thumb. It was a tiny movement, almost invisible, but Dante knew it from childhood. Luca did it when he was hiding anger behind manners. Dante stood slowly. "Maybe it is not evidence yet," he said, "but it is no longer trash." Gerald slid his papers together with a dry, careful sound. The initials establish sentiment, not ownership. Even sentimental estate property must be returned to the proper archive. Dante turned his head. "You came here for a device. Your document says staff possession. It says reputation of the deceased. But it does not mention a cloth, and it does not mention my mother's initials." Gerald opened his mouth, then closed it. Vivian filled the silence. The device was the concern. Nora shook her head. "It was hiding." Everyone looked at her. She seemed surprised by the attention and pulled the phone closer. "Mama hides it in the towel drawer." But Miss Vivian looked there. Maya closed her eyes for half a second. Dante looked at Vivian. "You searched the towel drawer?" Vivian kept her smile, but it became thinner. "Housekeeping areas are inspected routinely." "That was not my question." Vivian did not answer. Dante placed his second glove beside the first, as if removing the last excuse. "For carelessness. Seal this room. No one leaves. No one makes a private call. No one touches that envelope." A guard stepped into place near the hallway. Luca's voice cooled. "You are turning a child's fear into a family investigation." Dante looked back at him. 3 adults came prepared to remove something from a child before I knew it existed. That became an investigation. Then he turned to the older guard near the kitchen. "Go to my mother's room. Top drawer of the nightstand. Bring the old white charger with the yellowed tape around the cord." Gerald reacted before Vivian could. I would advise against turning it on. Could damage the data. The word landed too cleanly. Gerald blinked. The device, he corrected. No one helped him. Nora leaned toward Maya and whispered, loud enough for Dante to hear. The paper man is scared it will wake up. Dante looked at the phone in the yellow cloth, then at the lawyer who had spoken one word too soon. Yes, he said quietly. I think he is. The older guard returned with the white charger held flat across both palms, as if even a cord had become something the room no longer trusted. A strip of yellowed tape circled the wire near the plug, frayed at one edge where age had lifted it from the plastic. Dante recognized it before the guard reached the coffee table. His mother had used that charger in her private hospital room, complaining that it only worked when the cord was turned one certain way and left alone, like an old dog that did not like strangers. The memory crossed Dante's face for less than a second, but Maya saw it, and so did Luca. Dante took the charger and placed it on the glass beside Gerald Pike's folded authorization. Not close to Luca, not close to Vivian, but close enough for Nora to see. This is all we are doing, Dante said. We plug it in. We see whether the phone has power. No one opens a file. No one deletes anything. No one touches the child. Gerald adjusted his cuff. Mr. Moretti, even powering on a device can raise questions about chain of custody. Dante looked at him. Then you should be grateful there are witnesses. Nora crawled forward only a few inches, still half under the table, still holding the phone inside the pale yellow cloth. Maya knelt near the edge of the rug but did not cross it. Baby, she said softly, you do not have to give it away. Nora shook her head. I am not giving it. It just needs to breathe. Vivian gave a small smile. Nora, phones do not breathe. Nora did not look at Vivian. She looked at Dante. Things that sleep a long time breathe first. The room had no answer for that. Dante crouched, careful and slow, and guided the charger toward the bottom of the phone, while Nora kept both hands around the cloth. The plug did not slide in. Luca exhaled quietly, as if the test had failed and dignity could return to the room. Enough, he said. We have indulged this. Nora leaned over the cracked screen. Turn it over, she whispered. Dante turned the plug. This time it clicked into place. The sound was tiny, but everyone heard it. Nothing happened. The screen stayed black. 5 seconds passed. 10. Vivian's shoulders lowered slightly. Gerald reached toward the edge of his papers, but Dante's eyes moved to him, and the lawyer stopped. Nora placed her small palm on the dark glass. Wait, she said. It is shy. Luca almost smiled. Dante, please. You are letting a child explain a dead battery. Dante did not look away from the screen. Then let the battery answer. 20 more seconds passed. Then a faint red symbol flickered beneath the cracks. Maya's hand rose to her mouth. Nora did not smile. She only nodded once, as if the phone had kept a promise she already believed in. The red battery pulsed again, and the dim screen came alive. Across the top, an old alarm notification appeared in plain white words. Tell Dante before dinner. No one breathed the same way after that. Dante read the words once, then again. His hand stayed near the charger, but his fingers had gone still. Before dinner, he said quietly. What dinner? Maya looked down. Luca answered before she could. It proves nothing. Anyone can name an alarm. Dante turned the phone just enough for the others to see without taking it from Nora. Correct, he said. That is why no one here will touch the contents until they are copied properly. Gerald stepped forward. That is unnecessary. The family can preserve its own device. Dante looked at him with no anger in his face, which somehow made the room colder. The family tried to take it from a child under a table. The family lost the privilege of handling it alone. He turned to the guard by the door. Call Mr. Harlan from Digital Forensics. He comes alone, brings a clean laptop, and signs every step in front of everyone. Gerald reacted before Luca could stop him. If an outside technician accesses the data before inventory, the evidence could be compromised. The word evidence hung in the room. Dante slowly turned his head. Evidence, he repeated. Gerald blinked. I meant the device. Maya's voice came from the edge of the rug, soft but clear. No, sir. You meant what is inside it. The phone screen changed, revealing 6 pale circles waiting for a passcode. Nora stared at them as if they were not numbers, but a door. It wants the day, she whispered. Dante lowered his voice. What day? Nora pressed the wrapped phone closer to her chest, suddenly small again. Not just numbers, she said. The day the white-haired lady cried. Maya closed her eyes, and Dante saw the answer hurt her before he even knew what it was. Luca's face became calm again, too calm, the way still water hides the things sinking beneath it. Dante looked at Maya. What day is she talking about? Maya opened her eyes and looked not at Luca, not at Gerald, but at the son Alessandra had waited for. The day your mother waited for you before dinner, she said. The day they told you she was asleep. Maya Bell looked at the 6 pale circles on the cracked screen as if they were not asking for a passcode, but asking her to open a day she had tried to keep locked inside herself. The small sitting room stayed sealed. The guard stood at the doorway. Gerald Pike's folded authorization lay beside Dante's black gloves. Luca Moretti stood with his face calm again, too calm, while Vivian Cole watched the old phone as if a dead battery had betrayed her personally. Nora still held the device in both hands, the pale yellow cloth gathered around it like a small blanket. Dante did not rush Maya. That was what made her finally speak. It was March 6th, she said. Your mother asked for you all afternoon. She had me brush her hair twice. She wanted the blue shawl, not the gray one. She said if her son was coming before dinner, she wanted to look like herself. The room seemed to grow smaller around Dante. His jaw did not move, but the skin around his eyes changed. Luca stepped in with a soft voice that sounded almost hurt. Dante, mother was resting that evening. I told you what the nurses told me. Maya turned toward him. This time she did not lower her eyes. No, sir. She was awake. The words were quiet, but they made every polished object in the room feel suddenly useless. Nora leaned against Maya's knee and whispered. She cried quiet, like Mama does when she washes dishes and thinks I am sleeping. Dante looked down at the child, and the detail struck harder than accusation. It was too small to be invented by someone trying to win. It was the kind of thing a child remembered because adults forgot to hide it. A short time later, Mr. Harlan arrived after the guards cleared his entry and wrote down the time. He carried a clean laptop, sealed cables, gloves, and a black evidence bag. He was not one of Luca's men. He was not one of Gerald's contacts. He signed every step in front of the room. The cracked screen, the yellow cloth, the charger, the visible alarm, the witness list, and the fact that the phone had remained with Nora until Maya allowed the next step. Gerald watched the paperwork with the expression of a man looking for a missing exit. Dante gave him none. One attempt, Dante said. If the code fails, we stop. Maya knelt beside Nora and touched the back of her daughter's hand. Baby, do you remember the day? Nora nodded solemnly. The day the white-haired lady cried. Maya swallowed. 030625. Nora pressed each number slowly. 030625. The screen held still. One breath. Two. Vivian's mouth softened, ready for relief. Then the phone opened. No one spoke. The home screen appeared beneath the cracks, dim but clear. The wallpaper showed Alessandra Moretti sitting beside a hospital window, pearl earrings in place, a folded blue shawl around her shoulders, and the Moretti ring resting in her thin palm. Dante stared at the image. His mother had waited for him dressed like herself. He had not come. A notification sat near the top of the screen. Unsent voice message to Dante. Created at 7:14 in the evening. Mr. Harlan copied the phone first, step by step, saying each action aloud so no one could later pretend it had happened in secret. Only when the copy was complete did Dante nod. The recording began with a faint rustle. Then Alessandra's voice entered the room, weak but unmistakable. Dante, if you hear this, Maya did not steal from me. I asked her to keep this phone because someone in this house is rewriting what I wanted before I am even gone. Dante went pale. He did not sit. He did not reach for the table. He simply stopped looking like a man people feared and began looking like a son who had heard his mother through a locked door. The recording continued. They will say you are grieving too hard. They will say signing after dinner is the peaceful choice. Do not sign anything Luca brings you. Luca stepped forward. Audio can be edited. Mr. Harlan did not look away from the laptop. It can. This file shows original creation metadata from this device. 7:14 in the evening, March 6th. It was never successfully sent. Dante's voice was almost too quiet. Why? Mr. Harlan typed again. The recipient number was blocked before delivery. Vivian looked at Luca before she could stop herself. Gerald looked down at his folded papers. Nora tugged Maya's apron. Mama. Did the phone try to find him and get stopped? Maya placed a hand over Nora's curls. Yes, baby. Dante's eyes stayed on the laptop. Who blocked it? Mr. Harlan read the line on the screen, and the room seemed to lose all warmth at once. The change came from a family administrator account registered to Luca Moretti's private office. The line on Mr. Harlan's laptop sat there in plain black text, and for the first time that afternoon, Luca Moretti did not answer quickly. His private office. His administrator account. His name standing beside the silence. That had kept a mother's final message from reaching her son. But Luca was not careless, and he did not panic in front of witnesses. He let disappointment settle onto his face before he spoke, as if he were the one being accused by grief instead of evidence. My office manages dozens of family systems, he said, low and controlled. Assistants, vendors, estate staff, security consultants. You know that, Dante. A technical record proves access. It does not prove intent. Gerald Pike stepped forward with professional relief, as if Luca had opened the one door he needed. That is correct. Administrative accounts can be used by multiple authorized individuals. No responsible conclusion should be drawn from one access line. Dante did not respond right away. He watched them both, and the silence became heavier than anger would have been. Nora stood beside Maya now, still holding the pale yellow cloth around the phone. Her small fingers pressed into the fabric as if the device might hear adults lying and decide to go back to sleep. Mr. Harlan continued working from the copied data. There is a locked notes folder, he said. The folder name is Dinner Papers. Gerald's face changed only slightly, but Dante had spent his life reading slight changes. Open the copy, Dante said. Mr. Harlan documented the step, confirmed that he was using the forensic copy, and enlarged the first image on the laptop. The photograph showed a polished dining table, cream paper, a silver pen, and the edge of a black folder. The second photograph showed the top of a document clearly, temporary grief incapacity clause. Dante read the words once, then again. The clause described an emergency process that would allow the family council to limit his authority over the Moretti Trust if he was judged emotionally unstable after his mother's death. Not missing, not ill, grieving. Luca had not only blocked his mother's voice. He had prepared to turn Dante's pain into paperwork. Maya looked at Dante, and for the first time since entering the room, she seemed afraid for him, not of him. Vivian spoke before anyone asked her. Large families prepare sensitive documents all the time. It is normal. After a major loss, Dante did not look at her. This was printed before the loss. Mr. Harlan enlarged the lower corner of the photograph. A printer timestamp appeared in the margin. March 6th, 6:38 in the evening. Maya whispered, "Before dinner." Nora looked up. "Before the lady cried?" Maya nodded once, her lips pressed tight. Gerald adjusted his tie. Draft language is not action. A photograph of a draft does not prove wrongdoing. Dante's voice stayed quiet. Then why did my mother photograph it from her bed? No one answered. Mr. Harlan continued scanning the copied files. There are 2 unsent text drafts. Dante nodded. Read them. The technician looked at him first, as if asking whether he truly wanted his mother's private fear spoken aloud in front of the people who had caused it. Dante did not blink. Mr. Harlan read the first draft. Dante, do not sign anything at dinner. Ask for Claire Hollis. He read the second. Maya, if I cannot send this, keep the phone hidden until Dante asks why Luca needed him quiet. The name Claire Hollis made Gerald look up too fast. Dante saw it. Luca saw Dante see it. Nora pointed at the image of the legal page on the laptop, where Dante's name sat above words too heavy for a child to understand. Why did they put your name on sad paper? She asked. No one corrected the phrase. It was too simple and too close to the truth. Dante looked from the child to his brother. Who is Claire Hollis? Gerald answered a fraction late. An outside attorney your mother contacted briefly. Nothing came of it. Maya shook her head. Something came of it. Mrs. Moretti waited for her call. She said the woman sounded calm enough to make scared people tell the truth. Nora tugged Maya's apron. The teacher voice, she said. Dante turned to her. You heard that voice? Nora nodded. On the phone. She said save the real one. She said grown-ups change papers when people are tired. The sentence was too exact to be useful as a lie. Gerald's hand moved toward his phone before he stopped himself. Dante noticed. No private calls, he said. Mr. Harlan checked the call log from the copied device. There was a call from Mrs. Alessandra Moretti's phone to Claire Hollis at 7:22 in the evening on March 6. Maya looked at the old phone as if she could still hear Alessandra breathing between words. After they left her room, she said softly. Luca's face settled into perfect calm. And that was when Dante understood the truth was larger than one blocked message. His brother had tried to make grief look like weakness, loyalty look like theft, and a dead woman's warning look like a servant's lie. Dante looked at the phone wrapped in his mother's cloth and spoke without raising his voice. Get me the hospital log. Get me every print record from Gerald's office. Get me the hallway camera near the staff linen storage. Then his eyes moved to Luca. And find Claire Hollis. Dante did not move after giving the order, and that stillness changed the room more than shouting ever could. Luca knew how to stand inside anger. Gerald knew how to argue against accusation. Vivian knew how to polish fear until it looked like procedure. But Dante gave them only quiet, and quiet gave every object in the small sitting room a witness weight. The folded recovery paper, the cracked phone, the pale yellow cloth, the charger with old tape, the laptop glowing with his mother's unfinished trail. Nora leaned against Maya's apron. Tired now, her small hand still holding the wrapped phone, as if letting go too early might make the adults forget what it had already said. Dante looked at her and lowered his voice. Nora does not answer another question unless she wants to, he said. She is not here to perform for grown people. Maya's eyes lowered, not in shame this time, but in relief. Luca gave a soft breath that almost sounded kind. Dante, you are building a case out of grief, staff gossip, and a child's memory. Dante finally looked at him. No, he said. I am building a timeline. That was when the first guard returned with a tablet from the security office. He placed it beside Mr. Harlan's laptop and turned the screen so everyone could see. The hallway camera near the staff linen storage showed Vivian Cole entering the corridor that morning, checking over her shoulder, opening the towel drawer, and leaving with nothing in her hands but a face too controlled to be innocent. Vivian's lips parted, then closed. Routine inspection, she said. Dante did not answer. The guard tapped again. A second clip showed Vivian returning less than 12 minutes later with Luca. Luca did not open the drawer. He pointed to it. Vivian did. Nora watched the silent figures on the screen and pressed herself closer to Maya. That is when Mama moved it, she whispered. Because the drawer got scared. No one corrected her. The second guard came in next with print records from Gerald's office. One page had been logged 2 days earlier from Gerald Pike's private printer. Estate device recovery authorization. Another record showed an after-hours legal drafting fee tied to the phrase recovery of old mobile device believed to be in staff possession. Maya's face tightened at the words, not because she was surprised, but because a machine had now said what the house had already done to her. Gerald adjusted his glasses. Drafting a recovery document is not misconduct. Dante nodded once. That is why we keep going. He reached for the house phone instead of his cell phone. Every call from this room is logged, he said, looking once at Gerald. Mr. Harlan read Claire Hollis's number from Alessandra's call log, and Dante dialed it on speaker. The ring sounded too ordinary for what the room was waiting to hear. On the fourth ring, a woman answered with a calm professional voice. Claire Hollis. Nora's fingers tightened around the cloth. Teach your voice, lady, she whispered. Dante watched Luca as he spoke. Miss Hollis, this is Dante Moretti. I believe my mother contacted you on March 6th. The silence that followed was brief, but Luca shifted his weight inside it. Then Claire said, Mr. Moretti, your mother believed her messages to you were being blocked. She instructed me not to release the preserved record to Luca Moretti or Gerald Pike. Gerald's face lost color in careful stages. Luca stepped forward. You have no way to verify who is present in that room. Claire answered without raising her voice. I heard your voice on the preservation call, Mr. Moretti. Remember it because Mrs. Moretti asked me to note that you interrupted her twice. For the first time that day, Luca had nothing smooth waiting. Dante's voice remained even. Do you have the original record? Yes, Claire said. A notarized statement, a preservation receipt, and a call summary. I am already near the estate because your mother asked me to be available during the inventory review if her message never reached you. Dante looked toward the hallway leading to the main dining room. Come to the dining room. When the call ended, the hospital records arrived through the secure records office. Mr. Harlan placed the printed log beside the phone record. Luca Moretti and Gerald Pike entered Alessandra's room at 7:02 in the evening. They left at 7:11. Alessandra created the voicemail at 7:14. She called Claire Hollis at 7:22. Maya covered her mouth. Nora could not read the numbers, but she understood the way adults stopped breathing around them. Dante straightened his jacket and looked toward the room where his family had planned to turn grief into signatures. Prepare the dining room, he said. Luca's voice came quietly from behind him. For what? Dante did not turn around. For the dinner my mother was trying to warn me about. The main dining room of the Moretti house looked exactly the way powerful families liked their secrets to look. Polished, quiet, and arranged under enough light to make every lie seem respectable. The long walnut table stretched beneath a chandelier bright as ice. Cream folders sat at every chair. Silver pens rested beside water glasses no one had touched. 2 senior family advisors, the household accountant, the trust manager, Mr. Harlan, 3 staff witnesses, and the head of security waited as Dante entered from the side hallway with Maya, Nora, and the old phone wrapped in the pale yellow cloth. Maya stopped near the service doorway without thinking. That was where years in the house had taught her body to stop, close enough to answer, far enough not to be included. Nora stood pressed against her mother's skirt, both hands still around the phone, her face tired but stubborn. Luca saw that hesitation and used it before anyone else could breathe. He rose slowly, turning to the table with the sorrowful expression of a loyal brother forced to protect the family from embarrassment. Before this becomes a public wound, he said, we should remember what this house has endured. My brother is grieving. A grieving man can hear any recording and believe it is a message from the person he lost. Maya Bell has worked here for years, but that does not give her the right to place her child inside our mother's estate. Gerald Pike placed the recovery authorization on the table with both palms flat. Procedure exists for exactly this reason. Estate property must be controlled. The Moretti Trust Agreement does not allow family assets to be held outside formal authorization. Dante did not interrupt. He let the room hear how clean a lie sounded when it wore the language of order. Then he looked toward the doors. Then let procedure speak. The doors opened, and Claire Hollis walked in carrying a navy folder and a sealed envelope. She did not look at the chandelier, the portraits, or the men waiting to measure her authority. Her eyes went first to the yellow cloth in Nora's arms. Mrs. Alessandra Moretti described that cloth to me, she said. She said if it appeared, Maya Bell had kept her promise. Gerald stood halfway. Your role in this matter has not been established. Claire placed her identification, notarized preservation receipt, and call summary on the table. My role began when Alessandra Moretti contacted me at 7:22 in the evening on March 6th and asked me to preserve a statement in case her message to Dante Moretti was blocked. Dante nodded to Mr. Harlan. The wall screen lit up. First came the hospital visitor log. Luca Moretti and Gerald Pike entered Alessandra's room at 7:02 in the evening and left at 7:11. Next came the voicemail metadata, created at 7:14. Then came the blocked recipient record tied to a family administrator account registered to Luca's private office. A low movement passed around the table. Luca folded his hands. A timeline proves concern, not wrongdoing. Dante said, then we add motive. The next image appeared, temporary grief incapacity clause, printed at 6:38 in the evening from Luca's office. The accountant removed his glasses. One advisor leaned forward. Gerald spoke quickly. Draft language is not action. Claire opened the sealed envelope. And a preserved statement is not draft language. She laid the notarized record beside the empty space Dante had left for the phone. Alessandra stated that Maya Bell was asked to hold the device. She also stated that any accusation of theft against Maya would be false. Mr. Harlan added the hallway footage. Vivian entering the staff linen area that morning, checking the towel drawer, leaving and returning later with Luca. Vivian looked down. The room finally saw the search before the accusation before the recovery paper, and the recovery paper before Dante was told. Dante turned to Maya. Come here, please. Maya did not move at first. Nora tugged her skirt. Mama, he said, please. Maya crossed the room slowly. Dante held out his hand to Nora, palm open. May I place it with the record? Nora studied him, then set the wrapped phone in his hand and stepped back against Maya. Mr. Harlan played the final portion of Alessandra's voicemail. Her weak voice filled the dining room. Dante, do not punish the woman who protected what I could not send. Luca's last defense came colder than before. Under the Moretti trust agreement, property held outside formal authorization may still be considered misappropriated. Dante looked at him, and the room understood the power had shifted. Luca, you were not defeated by a maid. You were defeated by the truth a child refused to let go. Then Dante turned to Claire. Record everything. Before anyone leaves this room, we decide what justice looks like when it is written in ink, not whispered in hallways. The dining room stayed silent after Dante said the word justice, but the silence no longer belonged to Luca. It belonged to the evidence. The old phone rested beside Claire Hollis's sealed envelope, still wrapped in Alessandra's pale yellow cloth. Gerald Pike's recovery authorization sat farther down the table. Now untouched, thin and exposed beneath the chandelier light. Claire opened her tablet and said, I am recording. Dante looked first at the family advisors, then at the trust manager, then at the accountant, because justice in that room had to be more than a sentence spoken by a powerful man. It had to become a record no one could quietly erase after the doors closed. Every document prepared by Gerald Pike concerning my authority, my mother's estate, this device, or any grief incapacity language is suspended from estate use pending independent review, Dante said. Luca Moretti's access to the family trust, administrator accounts, estate devices, and inventory approvals is frozen until an outside audit is complete. Luca kept one hand on the back of a chair, still wearing the wounded face of a loyal brother. You are humiliating the family in front of staff. Dante turned toward Maya, who stood beside Nora near the table. Her hands folded tightly because years in that house had taught her not to take up space. No, he said. You humiliated this family when you tried to make my mother's warning look like a maid's theft. Vivian Cole looked down beside the sideboard. Dante's eyes moved to her. Your access cards are canceled tonight. Every staff area you searched, every drawer you opened, every employee you questioned without a witness will be reviewed by independent counsel. If anyone was pressured to help bury that phone, their statement goes into the file. Vivian swallowed. I was following instructions. Then you chose instructions over the truth, Dante said. Gerald pushed his chair back a few inches. Mr. Moretti, I must caution you against statements that may damage professional reputations. Claire did not look up from her notes. Mr. Pike, the recovery authorization, print records, blocked message timeline, hallway footage, and preserved statement will be submitted to the State Bar's disciplinary board. You will have every opportunity to answer with documentation. Gerald stopped moving. The chair legs became still against the polished floor. Dante walked to the chair beside his own place at the head of the table and pulled it out. The sound was soft, but Maya flinched as if the room had called her name too loudly. Dante did not call her staff. He did not call her servant. He said, "Maya Bell, please sit." Maya stared at the chair. Nora tugged her skirt and whispered, "Mama, he said your whole name." That was what finally broke the old rule inside Maya. Not money, not rescue. Her name, spoken clearly in the room where she had spent years being almost invisible. She sat slowly, both hands folded in her lap, while Nora leaned against her side. Dante placed a written statement in front of Claire. Before anyone leaves, this house issues a formal apology to Maya Bell. Her employment record will show no misconduct. Any withheld wages, benefits, overtime, or housing-related deductions will be reviewed by an outside accountant and paid. She receives independent legal counsel paid by the estate, with no non-disclosure agreement and no condition of silence. If she chooses to stay, she works under written protections. If she chooses to leave, she leaves with full references, transition support, and protection from retaliation. Nora will not be spoken to by media, staff, family members, or attorneys without her mother's permission and independent counsel present. Maya covered her mouth, but this time she was not holding back fear. Nora looked at the old phone on the table. Her small shoulders sank as if the truth had finally become too heavy for a child to carry. "Can I let go now?" she asked. Dante knelt in front of her, the silver Moretti ring catching the light. "Yes," he said. "From now on, adults will hold the truth the right way." Nora touched the yellow cloth once more, then placed both hands in her mother's lap. Later, after the advisors signed the suspension order, after Claire sealed the records, after Luca left without a single folder and Gerald left without taking a single page, Dante stood near the service doorway where Maya had always waited to be called. He placed a framed copy of Alessandra's statement on the wall, low enough for Nora to see. The final line was simple: "Maya Bell acted with my trust." Nora sounded out the first word she knew. "Maya!" Her mother cried quietly then, not because she had been given charity, but because the house that once questioned her hands now had her name in writing. Dante looked at the empty chair beside his at the dining table, then at the phone resting under his mother's cloth. The smallest person in the room had protected the truth until the most powerful adults could no longer pretend they had not seen it.